What's up, Beyond the Harmony? I got a question for you. When is the last time you read the source article on E.1999 Eternal? You know, the issue where Bone Thugs and Harmony were on the front cover. It's been a while for me. I mean, I really don't think I've read it since I got the issue. And this issue is going for $99.99 on eBay right now. I used to have a subscription and I used to keep all my issues in mint condition from 94 to 97. But when I graduated, I gave them all away. I can't imagine. That's probably like $3,000 of issues I gave away. So a few weeks ago, I had narrated the review that they gave on Eternal. They gave 3.5 mics. But let's read together. I'm going to narrate this article to go back to see what the story painted about Bone was in 1995. And just to see how hip-hop articles were written back then. I think it ought to be amusing to see how far we've come, how it's evolved, and who's writing the stories now and how it's told. Let's see what we got. Keep in mind that, remember on Crazy Bones' verse on If I Could Teach the World, when he said the critics and writers mess up the stories when they write it. So let's see what they wrote back then. Mad Max, 1995. Riding Cleveland's underground of blunt smoke and Midwestern funk with Bone Thugs and Harmony. The intro, Us Against the World. Welcome to the year 2006. The United States has become a war zone, literally. Newt Gingrich's radical conservatives, angry upstart militias, and Emperor Pete Wilson have banded together to sew up everything from Texas to California to Kansas. Masses of blacks, Asians, Mexicans, Puerto Ricans, and anybody else with colorful skin are packed into concentration camps like lab rats. The anti-immigration measure, Proposition 187, has become Proposition 1087, with only two goals: get rid of them all or lock them all up. But when the Take Back America movement reached the Midwest, an army of soldiers resisted, spurring an opposition to stop the elderly Wilson. Bone Thugs and Harmony, part rap star thugs and part spokesman for their generation, have become the leaders of this underground nation of hoodlums, drug dealers, scheming ex-cons, and shorties disenchanted with their lives. Cleveland, Ohio has become the command post in their down-below world of hazy smoke, where stolen food is bountiful, and 13-year-olds stand guard with Uzis at the gates of Boneland. In the Bone world, you can buy a 6-pack of 20 sacks at the corner tent, and upon entering the city limits, you must partake in a sip of Hennessy to show your appreciation for the rulers. Mad Max in its nature, without Tina's fine legs and Gibson's pseudo-tough man image. This is the place worried mothers calling for their child after dark feared would materialize. Whole neighborhoods have been wiped out, with nothing but desert and cars buried in trash. There are only dune buggies racing through the sand, pounding thuggish, ruggish Bone. One day, as they are speeding through what was once Columbus, Ohio, the 5 members of Bone, cruising in their old-school Suburban with the top sawed off, pass a woman bending over an open hood with smoke lifting into the air. Her hair is frizzled, and her car is obviously broken down. Flesh and Bone flips back into reverse, trying to help the woman. "You need a ride?" asks Lazy, sipping on a 22 of Old English. "No way I get into that car with you thugs," says the woman, turning up her nose. Wish, recognizing the woman, realizes why she is so hesitant. "Ain't that the lady who be talking all that shit about rap in Congress and shit?" "Yeah, that's her," says Busy, getting angry. "We wouldn't pick up your ass anyway." They all burst into a sinister chorus of laughter, screeching off and kicking dust into her face. "That will be fun as fuck," said Wish, envisioning the scenario and the possibility of him and the rest of his crew becoming underground warriors, liberating hip-hop and black people from a past 60s backlash. "I would be loving shooting motherfuckers, man. I used to always watch that movie, Mad Max, and be like, damn, While reclining back on a cheesy love seat inside the old Herald Examiner newspaper building in downtown Los Angeles, where Ice Cube shot his video, Really Doe, Cleveland's premier hip-hop thuggas are taking a break from the filming of their video, First of the Month. The new theme song for welfare recipients and hood dwellers is the first single off their debut album, E.1999 Eternal. The thought of them being in a world like Mad Max has them bugging, laughing, and choking off all the chronic smoke in the air. Lazy, his name saying it all about his speech and outlook on life, sits on the end of the couch, picking his teeth with a knife. He is the unofficial despot and lead talker for Bone. Wish, high and tired, is sprawled out on the floor. His ever-growing afro is smashed down on one side because of his quick nap. Wish's baby-faced brother, Flesh and Bone, is sitting at the end of the couch, dozing off and enjoying his high. He says very little, except for a nod here and there. The tallest member of the crew, laid back crazy, with his hair braided, is spinning on a small stool, grubbing on a plate of soul food. Busy Bone, the light-skinned kid with the afro in the Thuggish Ruggish Bone video, misses the plane to Los Angeles. He never does show up for the shoot. The video for First of the Month is a special effects horror ride with Bone playing navigators through the joy and pain of National Welfare Day. They shuffle through the stacks of food stamps with a backdrop of skulls, candles, and weird mirrors in one scene. Later, during a break in the filming in the dressing room, a pushy production assistant pesters them to return to the set. Crazy sets them straight. "You see this joint," he says, pointing to a lightly smoked blunt. "This is the motherfucking time clock." With that said, and a little bit of nudging from a Ruthless Records marketing person, the white boy with the headset slinks out of the room. Our conversation slips from the civil rights movement to the O.J. Simpson double murder case, with members of Bone offering comments. Wish on O.J. "That motherfucker ain't no real N-word. If he was, he would have just shot both of them and not left all that blood and shit. That was some real stupid shit. Crazy I'm protesting. I want to do a movie where some black motherfuckers from the 90s go back into the past, into the Martin Luther King days, so they could teach them other black motherfuckers not to be so scary. They'd go back in that bitch blasting them motherfuckers. It would be sweet. I'm telling you, man. Just whoop their ass. Don't worry about nothing. We ain't marching." Lazy, on days when there were only white eating areas, I would sit at an N-word table and just start eating his chicken. And then I would slap that motherfucker if he said something. I'd be like, boom, right in his face. Tell him that shit done changed. At various moments in the interview, Bone shown signs of simply being old teenagers enjoying this new world of groupies and stage shows. Yet minutes later, they would be shrugging it all off, remembering the days when the only pressures they had were staying out of jail and trying to rustle up enough change for a bag of potato chips. Every thug rapper in America is anxious to blow up, and Bone is especially eager to show motherfuckers that Cleveland got some real N-words. They want to test even the top dogs. "We gonna fuck with Michael Jackson this year." Laughing, but seeming to actually consider their album dueling with Jackson on the pop charts. Wish's daydreaming might become reality. Not actually selling as many records as Michael. Nobody sells as many as the King of Pop. But with the huge success of their EP, Creeping on a Come Up, which sold a staggering 3 million copies, and their singles Thuggish Ruggish Bone and For the Love of Money, the 5 young rappers have positioned themselves to become one of rap's biggest selling groups of all time. And though they won't tell their ages, they're still all probably under 21. How does one continue to abide by the overused hip-hop phrase of staying true while getting paid in a major way? For Bone, it would seem to be all about perseverance and how you come at this music business game. How the bone became flesh, or how they got down with Ruthless. The way Bone crept on a come-up is typical of brothers desperate to get on the dangerous hip-hop jungle. Back when they rocked Pumas in junior high school in 1987 and passed around paper bags of brew, they had a crew called the Band-Aid Boys. They ran together, rapped together, sang together, and frequently stole together. "All we wanted was some brew," says Lazy, reminiscing on a time when he and the rest of Bone were 15 and looted a local soda factory. "We told the Arabs at the liquor stores, let's trade, and they did. We didn't smoke much weed back then, but we was some alcoholics like a motherfucker. In between skipping classes in high school, selling crack or marijuana, and basically just trying to survive in the hectic ghetto life of East 99th and St. Clair in Cleveland, Bone bumped NWA and dreamed of seeing their album in the Warehouse or Sam Goody's. They even released an underground tape called Faces of Death. It did well in Cleveland, but that's about it. After a string of wannabe producers and sleazy managers sent them through some bad deals, Bone decided that there was only one man who could let the rest of the world see their talent. Scraping together dimes, nickels, and whatever loose money they could find, Bone hopped on a one-way Greyhound bus to a small California town called Visalia, where they had some friends and a supposed hookup. Despite tons of calls to the Ruthless office, nights watching The Box and writing songs to Eazy's Real Compton City G's, Bone struck out. Things got so wild and money so funny that they started robbing the pizza man. And if a woman showed up in the red and white Domino's fit, she got the same thing, jacked for the pepperoni. Eventually, though, being broke and struggling got played out. We really just came up on it like, damn, we could be called thugs in harmony, says Crazy. Like everybody else, singers have their harmony. We have a different kind of harmony, something that thugs do. When they were on their last leg, homies from Cleveland told them Eazy was doing a show in Cleveland. Rushing back home in search of what they saw as destiny, Bone scammed to get backstage and give Eazy a taste of Bone, or booted out N-words every day. Once he found out we was the N-words that had been rapping to him on the phone, he was like, "When y'all want to leave?" says a smiling Lazy. We was like, "Right now." The next day, Eazy left some bus tickets and a couple $100 for them at the Greyhound bus station. Bone was on their way to Hollywood and big bad Los Angeles, home of the scandalous. Eric Wright, R.I.P., 11,523. We used to fall asleep on hotel room floors with Eazy when we was doing our album, says Crazy. We would be high as fuck and E would just be looking at us laughing. For Bone, there was no greater influence in their musical careers than AIDS victim and fallen Compton rap thugster Eazy-E, who spent 11,523 days on Earth pioneering and searching for gangsta funk all over the world. Bone, starry-eyed and bordering on breaking down, speak of him with sadness and awe. Eazy put down the squad with NWA, says Lazy. The only thing he had to do this time was put the producer, Unique, with the group. He did that shit again, man. He put the chemistry down again. Even with the controversy surrounding the fate of Ruthless after Eazy's death, Bone says they remain true to who put them on, as long as they are treated fairly. We gon' always be with Ruthless, says Crazy, giving me a deadpan stare. You keep it real with me, I'll keep it real with you. The Bone sound. Early in their young careers, Bone decided to merge their generation's music and rap with the old school soul of their parents. Actually, they had no choice. Their inclinations towards the old school funk runs through their bloodstream like the hate for the government in Tim McVeigh's heart. My peoples got drunk all night, says Lazy in his slow talking drawl. I used to hate that shit. They would play that shit all night, and we would have to get up and go to school. Tired than a motherfucker. 6 a.m, they still getting drunk with the music on. Wish, who grew up just blocks away, remembers similar days. You know how you grow up in the ghetto, and when you wake up on Saturday mornings and your mama be cleaning up, playing that old music, after a while, that shit just wears on that ass. Yeah, man, says Crazy chiming in. Switching the bars, that was that player shit. All that Marvin Gaye, Teddy Pendergrass, and Rose Royce. Their appreciation for the foundation framers is apparent in their sound. Each Bone rhyme is a delicate balance of singing and what almost sounds like gangsta chanting. Often, they will join in unison in the middle of a verse or chorus, and if it weren't for the bodies flipping and falling to the ground in a Bone song, you might mistake them for R&B crooners. The new album, E.1999 Eternal, which took close to 8 months to make, is more of the same sounds as the EP. Their adolescent voices are more refined, with LA producer E.1999 providing theme music for the Bone Haunted House. "Yeah, I just went in and laid down that wicked thuggish shit," said E.1999 about producing the majority of the tracks on Eternal. "I know their sound. Some dark piano straight out of the gutter. When you hear it, it's real eerie." Cuts like Shots to the Double Glock with Poetic Hustlers and Graveyard Shift, two of the groups on their label Mo Thug Records, expand on the same vibe as Thuggish Ruggish Bone. And the Isley Brothers sounding Buddha Lovers grabs your neck, pulling your ears similar to the way they inhale ganja smoke. And buried deep in their gutter-sounding, yet gospel music-tinged style are their Midwestern roots, which grew out of a tree of desolation called Cleveland. Cleveland, home of sneaky ghettos. Imagine a city with no face, no cool sunny beaches, no towering midtown buildings. Then imagine Cleveland, with its gnawing winters and bland summer days. The city itself is the third gear in the trip across America. It is neither first nor second in the initial climb like Oakland or Los Angeles, nor the high-notched speed gears of New York and Chicago. Bone personifies this uniqueness. They are a group in transition, boys to men, hoping to put a face on a faceless hip-hop scene. And between the time your eyes hit this page and the time I have typed this sentence, Bone may have smoked immeasurable pounds of weed. 200 packs of Philly blunts, 42 bottles of Hennessy, and gallons of apple juice will have been consumed in the name of escaping from Cleveland's emptiness. The hood, sneaky and unassuming, creeps up on you in Cleveland. At any moment, you may have just passed a stunning pasture of green grass and well-groomed neighborhoods. Then, with a blink of an eye, you see the remnants of a post-industrial city. Boarded up stores and factories surround rundown homes. The streets are barren, with graffiti and wide-eyed children serving as signposts that you have entered the heartland of urban America. Two trains running embody the bone and the pulse of Cleveland. One hard, break-your-neck bobbing and thumping train comes chugging from the west. The other, a well-churning, muffled Amtrak, pulls in from the east. Each train, like all of black music, cannot forget its stops in the south. In a hotel in Cleveland, while tuning into the city government-sponsored television station, you can peep out the John's List, names of all those arrested for soliciting prostitutes in Cleveland. Even better, if you're worried about warrants, check out the top 30 parking violations in the city. Minutes after this bizarre episode, Busy Bone arrives at the Cleveland Airport Holiday Inn to take me to Wish's grandmother's house. He rolls in a green Jeep Cherokee, sporting braids, tan khakis, a blue t-shirt, and tugging on a pack of blunts. "You smoke weed?" he asks as I settle into his ride. I nod my head to the sound of some Naughty by Nature. We drive for about 15 minutes, lost on the freeway, looking for 71 North. Busy is high, but actually just keeps missing his entrance. His nickname, coming from his antsy nature and regularity of talking slow, yet heavy layers of shit to any N-word, is perfect for him. Even when he is chillin', his mind is working, in the Voltron family that is Bone Thugs and Harmony. Busy is the one most likely to flip through the Wall Street Journal, just because. And though he is only 18 years old, Busy has lived the life of men twice his age. He has 3 children and 1 on the way. That rough reality affected his decisions about finishing high school. "My babies can't eat no pencil," he says defiantly. Every Bone member is a father, but unlike far too many brothers, they all take care of their kids, either living with the mothers or providing the necessary cheese to make sure there are 3 squares on the table every day. Grandma's house on Remington. Drama in the hood has always been thick, but in Cleveland, at Wish's grandma's house, shit is even thicker. Walking up to a small house on Remington Street on the east side, you hear blasting music and chattering voices. Mama Sims, Wish and Flesh's grandmother, is joining their mom, Sweet Note, and their little sister, Lil Looney, in sipping scores of Old English. On a sweltering day in Cleveland, ain't no shame in sipping some cold beer. Shit talking and telling it like it is, says Sweet Note, recounting a story about how she was too high to sit under the hairdryer at a beauty parlor. She is matriarch and kingpin for the group, and as she says every 5 minutes, I am Bone. Every Bone member that arrives greets her. On the porch, while quietly rolling another blunt, Busy explains, usually when the shit pops off, you could bet it's gonna be Sweet Note in the middle of it. And whatever dirt I do, I could blame on her. He smiles. At any given moment, there are at least 15 people sitting on the porch. In between conversations about their recent trip to LA, the video shoot, and basic bullshitting in the hood, weed is rolled at an alarming pace. Blunts are passed over the fence into the yard and onto the porch, where they eventually end up in the hands of Lil Looney or Sweet Note, who hogs the joint while immersed in another shit-talking session. That brother always gotta have a posse behind him, says Crazy, lighting a joint with one hand and gesturing to an oncoming Lazy with the other. Lazy arrives in a clean-ass tan Land Cruiser with entourage, including Tony Tone, one of the artists signed to their company, Mo Thugs Records. Arriving, Lazy and crew are greeted the way Cleveland homies do it. 2 snaps of the finger after every handshake, and a reply to, "What's up?" is, "Just thuggin'." What's the difference between a brother from LA and a brother from Cleveland? A LA brother, the first thing he gonna do is go boom, boom, boom with his gat, Wish said at the video shoot. A brother from Cleveland gonna think first. I know I am. I ain't catching no case. This is where the situation gets murky in evaluating whether Bone are perfect examples of the bootstrap mentality or simply brothers who have replaced the drug selling with another form of drugs, music. In the weighty scales of good and evil, Bone is stuck somewhere in between, hoping that only God will play the judge and jury. But as the tide turns against hip-hop and Bob Dole, Congress and our persistent nemesis C. Dolores Tucker prepare to launch another assault on rap. More than ever before in the short history of the music, we must gauge both the behavior and meaning of a group like Bone, whose messages of brew and dank are seeping into the heads of black teenagers everywhere. We are witnessing the coming of age of a nation of shorties grabbing the mic. They are teenagers knocking on the door of their 20s, finding no need for checks and balances in their rhymes. They are in Houston, Detroit, Brooklyn, Watts, all over America, and each unrepenting hip-hop line sinks them further into a world without redemption. The wrath of the 1980s, a generation of addicts to pain grabs the reins. I was in a group called Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. We were rapping about getting money. Now, rappers are making smash hits like Bring the Pain. We were the last generation of affirmative action rap groups. Now, we have Reaganomic rap groups. Reaganomics took away after-school programs, summer jobs, and daycare. These rappers have no hope. All they see is pain. Uptown Records CEO Andre Harrell, from the Rap Something documentary, The Show. Picture the hardest shorties and little ass G's that you know. They're the kids who step up first in a beatdown. They throw the first blows and are always eager to unload the clip and prove their unproven manhood. In this equation of ghetto madness, they are not reporters sizing up docudrama of despair in their own neighborhoods. Here are those kids you see standing on the wall, their lips curled up, watching the junkies trade flesh and lies. In the post-Wu-Tang era, the concentration in their lives is on maintaining the health and prosperity of their own family. Hence, the existence and growth of small nomadic villages where the wanderers, Those lost souls sip beer among familiar lips. Global and national thinking is non-existent. It's like black movement? Fuck a movement. Move that bends and them ends into my crib. For their part, Bone claimed their role is only as a mirror of lives being unreported and stereotyped in headlines and on the 11 o'clock news. We did give a message in our music. Just ain't nobody peeped it yet, says Lazy, becoming increasingly serious. It's all about creeping on a come up. As the world turns, you gotta creep up and get down for your thing and don't surrender. The way we set up our album, the order of our songs, was the story of our lives. And if we kicking it with some young brothers in the hood, like 15, and we see them doing wrong, we gonna check them. That's how every brother in our generation needs to be. The biggest thing wrong now is that brothers ain't got no daddies. If there were some brothers like 20 years old telling them to go to school and checking them, then shit would be all good. But ain't no down out brothers out there laying it down. Lazy's words perfectly illustrate the Faustian paradox that emerges from the music of the Bone Thugs-n-Harmony and all the blunt smoke. Killing player haters and living for today is a call to arms for a generation who, in most Americans' eyes, black and white, has sold their soul to the devil. And ultimately, though smart, talented, and headed for phenomenal success, Bone Thugs-n-Harmony have become both victims and perpetrators in a hip-hop world rapidly approaching Mad Max. The same brothers that need to reach out to these young men are the ones passing the blunts and paper bags of malt liquor, simultaneously saving souls from and selling souls to the devil. And just to take a look at the pages from this issue, this was the first page, and it has that famous photograph that everybody knows of the 5 true thugs from the Double Glock. This article was by Frank Williams and photos by Chimodu. It's from the August 1995 issue of The Source. Oh, you could even buy a copy of it on Amazon for $90. There's the front cover of the issue. So this was like an insert advertisement, full page, Bone Thugs-n-Harmony, East 1999 Eternal, July 25th. I think that's the day that I went to the store and it wasn't there, and I ended up buying Faces of Death. On the side here is Upstairs Record DJ packages. This seemed like so expensive back then to buy this. Me and my buddies ended up buying this 4-track Tascam for $2.99, and we recorded like 2 albums on it. And then you have Operation Stackola. That's the album with I Got 5 on it by the Loonies. And we could see these little photographs of the Bones on the side here. More pictures of the Bones and ads for Dre Dog, Backstreet Life, and RBL Posse. Some more artwork. The Flash, whoever took the picture, the Flash kind of killed this picture of Crazy and Lazy. Got some more photos up here. Kodak. And that's where that's where the article ends. So, hey, if you stuck with me through this whole article, nothing really too amazing out of it. I thought we had a lot of things that we discovered on that 3.5 mic review, but nothing really stood out as like a what the heck too much on here. They kind of dissed all the homies from Cleveland that helped put together Faces of Death in that one part. But aside from that, it's a pretty straightforward article. I mean, there was a lot of like side story that had nothing to do with Bone, just creating imagery. I think it was kind of wrong to paint Cleveland like that. And, you know, they kind of started with this motif theme of Mad Max. They kind of painted Cleveland as, you know, like a post-apocalyptic world. But the theme of it really, it didn't go throughout the whole article. And then it ended on some like, they called it Faustian. But like that, if they're going to talk about that, selling your soul to the devil, that should have kind of gone throughout, because that's not really part of Mad Max. Like the Mad Max end of the world, you're like beyond good and evil at that point. You know, this article barely talked about the album at all. I guess it was just an article on Bone and Cleveland and their families and kind of about Mo Thug. And I wish they would have spent time talking about Bone and Mo Thug and even the family members more than this side story of the movement and the revolution. But if it's what Bone wanted, then that's cool. But, at the time, it's like, hey, can we hear more about the group here, or at least hear more about the album that's coming out? We heard a brief mention of Buddha Lovers, perhaps something, if I remember correctly, something on Shots to the Double Glock, something on First of the Month. They didn't mention the song E.1999 at all. They didn't mention Mo Murder. They didn't mention Land of the Heartless. They didn't mention Down 70. Did they? I think they did mention Down 71. But it's like they didn't mention the song Eternal. There was so much that wasn't mentioned in this article, and this article was like a half hour to read. So, yeah, I'll just chalk it up to 1995. It's pretty funny they were talking about Bob Dole and C. Dolores Tucker. But whatever. It's an article. It is what it is. How could they what was interesting is they seemed to know that Bone was going to have success. I don't know if all articles were saying like all these artists have a big, bright future ahead of them, but it's almost like it was written that Bone was going to go places. So I don't know how they could have known with just creeping on a come up, but hey, pretty cool. So that's a piece of history. Thanks for reading it with me. This is John Lippy on behalf of Cecil West, and we are Beyond the Harmony, and we will see you next time.